next speaker fled Vietnam at the age of 4, and he and his family spent 2 years at the refugee camp while waiting for their green cards to be approved. A person of ultimate integrity and courage, he is the first Asian American state senator in Massachusetts, and the only one on the committee who voted against H3361. A rising star and a true friend. Please welcome Senator Bill Tran.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. You know, my good friend Jim said something that is very correct. He said, in politics, it's about being unafraid and being resolute. And I am very proud of the fact that I was the only politician on the committee to vote against H336, and I'm the only state senator who voted against the red flag bill. So that tells you something. It tells you when you get into politics and you're around a group of people who you don't agree with, it's okay to stand up, it's okay to speak up, and it's okay to take actions based on your beliefs. My good friend Jim Langs also spoke about the bill that he worked on, the gender tax. And I was on the state Senate floor, sitting there. And thanks to him, I didn't get home until 3 in the morning. So I just want to begin by saying, I want to thank you very much for the generous invitation to attend today's second annual Chinese American Alliance Conference Committee today. It is such an honor and privilege to be here with you. I feel at home because I also have Chinese blood in me, as well as, you know, what they say, we all look alike. Today I want to talk about an idea. This is an idea that our founders of our country had 231 years ago in 1787, when they inscribed on the pages of history what would become the Constitution of the United States. Their efforts coupled with those of the millions of Americans who came before us. And this is why I am able to stand before you today to celebrate this land that we all call home together. My father was one of the hundreds of thousands of members of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam who fought against the Ho Chi Minh's North Vietnamese Army during the Vietnam War. When I was growing up, he never really spoke about his service, but I could always tell that it affected him deeply. After the collapse of the Southern Vietnamese Army, my father was forced to take us and flee the oncoming Communist Army with nothing but the shirts on our backs. I was only 2, and this is tough because my parents did so much to bring my siblings and I to this great country of ours. And unfortunately, my father's not here with me to celebrate the history making that I did this past year. So some of you know and heard of the Vietnamese boat people. That was me and my family. We were some of the lucky ones, as many of those fleeing Vietnamese boats would often fall to prey to roaming pirates or be swallowed by the sea. After leaving our home country, my family would spend another 2 years in a refugee camp until we were given our green cards in 1980 and adopted by a priest in Clinton, Massachusetts. Clinton, Massachusetts will always be somewhere that I fondly remember because it became my first real home. I never had a real first home before that. So growing up, my parents siblings had always heard stories about what it was like to live in America. They saw things on televisions and heard about them through stories from the American soldiers. They never dreamt that they would know the rights or liberties that Americans enjoyed. All they had known in their whole entire lives was war and oppressions from the French and then rivaling factions from Vietnam. My parents took me away from a country that was oppressive to its people. Personal rights, freedom, and opportunity do not exist. I refuse to let myself or those around me to be treated this way, which is why I am involved in politics. The fact is that America is a land of freedom, liberty, and opportunity, the likes of which has never been devised by man before or since. Our government may have assertive in your American identity and to take the lead in today's world to contribute meaningfully to our new community and our new country. My way of giving back is by getting involved in my community with everything from the political process, as I just mentioned, to my son's Dino's sports leagues. This is how I believe as a person and as an Asian American, I can make a difference and change the environments that I am in to better the future for my children and their children. That is also what I am encouraging each and every one of you here today to do the same. Ronald Reagan said that, and I quote, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction," unquote. He was right. It is up to each and every one of us to carry on that torch of freedom for our children and our grandchildren. It does not matter that many of us were not born here. We are all Americans, regardless, carrying on a tradition unlike anywhere in this world. I will give you an example of this tradition that many of you know. We have a big election coming up in the Commonwealth and across our country in 24 days. And who's counting, right? On that day, millions of Americans, including you and I, will go to the polls to exercise our rights as citizens. On that day, we will choose the leaders that will guide our national conversation over the course of the next few years. I encourage each and every one of you to take not only yourselves, but all of your loved ones to the polls that day to exercise the right that so many of us in this history that have not enjoyed. And in the intervening 24 days, I encourage you to sit in your homes, go places of community, gathering and talking to your friends, families, and loved ones about what you want our country to look like going forward. You only have to turn on the news for a few moments to know that we live in trying times. That does not mean that we are without hope or future. Each and every one of us is in that hope and at our future. Your children are the hope and that future. Your grandchildren are that hope and that future. I want to close with the rest of the quote from Ronald Reagan that I read to you earlier. In it he says, quote, "We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was like in the United States where men were free," unquote. Thank you very much, and God bless.